Hey, it's another Feedback Friday. Matt Helbig, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Matthew Smith. I'm excited to look at some of these ritual emails.
It's another time of taking a brand and unlocking their email mysteries.
This episode is sponsored by Influence. From subject lines to pre-header text, call to action button placement, email content, header images, and more, you can test up to 5 versions of an email with the Influence marketing platform. Get a demo at the link below.
I think you or maybe one of their designers started submitting some ritual emails recently, and I was thinking, ooh, what's this little pretty thing? Been really enjoying it, you know? It's mostly images, not a big fan of that.
I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping.
But if you're gonna do it, they've done it pretty well. In this example, no BS. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so transparency is a big deal to them. So let's talk about it. 5-star, 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 5-star from these different people talking about what they love. So social proof, but really like an email dedicated to social proof. I don't see that very often. And I think it's pretty interesting. Show me more so I can go and see more about their social proof, see what that's all about. My favorite, I love when people do this. Don't tell me you're on social. Show me on social. Show me why it matters to follow you on social, right? Like, ooh, look at this sick stuff. So they're doing it. I'm not sure what tool they're using. There's a couple that can do that, or if they're actually just grabbing some recent images, which is how some people do it as well. But they're doing it, and I think that's really powerful. This generally is what you'd call the footer. We talked about ReadyMag's footer last week, and I had this like little crush on it. This is another great footer. When the heck? 2 weeks in a row, man. I'm super psyched.
Having this dedicated customer satisfaction, customer happiness, social proof email is a really smart idea. They're not even really showing product shots in this, which is really interesting. Maybe that is an opportunity for them, I'm not sure. But I think the pared down text first, showing different stars, talking about the different products. I think sometimes I sort of glance over these just because, of course, like they're going to include the best of the best talking about their product, but I still think it helps build that brand relationship and brand trust by showing stuff like this.
You bring up a really good point, and that is that we did an episode with my friends at Biddyco, and we were talking about Supergoop, which is a product that is like a sunscreen. And what they were doing is they were showing somebody shot on an iPhone, not a studio shot, using the product, and then talking about it, like a testimonial talking about it. And that went even further. So it wasn't just a bottle of the product. It was showing somebody specifically using it. And that made like a really nice connection. And then the other thing that I've seen people do here is chose it because I'm sick of not knowing and ready to fuel myself with the best or something, right? Highlight that somehow. Call it out. Make it bold, put a highlighter yellow behind it or something like that. That's another way of going the extra step. And then the other thing, when I see all 5 stars, sometimes I wonder if, like you're saying, that feels like a little bit too much. They almost don't feel real. That's a challenging one. That's going to need some testing. So I think social proof is an interesting one. Seeing Jill P., okay, how do I know that these are real? How do I validate those? Sometimes adding like a location can help with that a little bit. Interesting challenges. Overall, I'm really impressed with this email. Let's go on to the next one. They're digging in a little bit. What's on your plate? All right. Okay, multivitamins, but this is food. So what's this about? So they dig in a little bit about what they're intending and why their brand is so focused on transparency, clarity, good food, things like that within their multivitamins. One thing to note here is they're using centered text here. Now, generally speaking, this is a big no-no. It's hard to read. Now, that said, one of the reasons it barely works here is because that's all that's going on. It's very large text. The text has enough line height or leading, and it's just very simple. There's a brand called Tracksmith that we've done. They do this occasionally, and it works. Just be real careful with it. technically speaking, you really shouldn't get over about 3 lines of centered text in terms of typographical rules, whatever those are. There's no typography police other than, I've applied, I'd like to become one. They haven't admitted me yet. But in the meantime, it's just something to keep an eye out on. As you look down through these articles, they're doing a good job. This is a better use of centered text. Notice here that they're using live text within something where they're pulling in probably something either live or maybe where they're split testing some text, or it's more of an article. So I'm glad to see that. I like these big clear CTAs, yellow being that real clear primary for them. And then some additional articles here done a little bit smaller. I think that's working pretty well. They're using this as their little CTA. If it were me, I'd put some kind of yellow underline, or if this is your CTA and you're doing both here, why? Is that necessary? Find out in your testing. Now, here you've got blue underlined text. It's very clear CTA, so at least there's that. I think oftentimes if there's a way to connect your different CTAs, I think that might be a blue in there. So that probably is partly helpful. And then they get down into their products. And this is like an overview that they're doing here with 3. It's a little bit out of alignment, something a little bit challenging there to fix. I like how they handled it over here on mobile even better, actually. I think that's the one that works really well. And these articles are stacked well. One of the things that I think they get right that a lot of people don't is there's enough padding below the one before and above the next one that this feels like its own little lockup. Whereas a lot of brands, the space ends up feeling like, I don't know where the CTA belongs to what image and things like that. So I think they've done a nice job, and man, super consistent. The footer isn't quite as happy as the last one, but it's real simple, so I like that. But what about you, man? You think this is working?
I'm starting to think that like a cheat code for really good email is just like to add rounded corners on your images or something. And we just love that. But yeah, I think this is one of those ones where they really have focused a lot of time on that mobile view. And I'm going to guess, just based on their branding and their audience, that maybe that is where they get the majority of their opens. So using that full width, it feels really on brand. Using those brand colors throughout this entire email, it all feels very ritual style. And then desktop, I think, is a little, like you said, lacking maybe. The alignment might be a little off, and I think it still works. Like the email is somewhat usable. You can click out and things like that, but the hierarchy feels a little different to me, and I think that mobile view is definitely where it shines. They always try new and interesting stuff with their images and photography and layout, so this is definitely a brand to follow, and you can see more examples on our site of some newer emails that they've been sending out that taking risks on layout and trying out some new stuff, so that's really cool to see.
As always, you can find the transcribed episode and more examples on Feedback Friday part of our site. Thanks for following along. Subscribe, tell your family and friends. We will see you next Friday, Email Geeks.
See ya. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks again to Influence for sponsoring this episode. Book your demo with the link in the video description.